So next up, we have a very special guest. We have a guy who spent as many years in college as I did, except for he got more than a 4-year degree out of it. Got lots of letters after his name from MIT, known as the chart master, Mr. Jon Peltier of PeltierTech.com. John, would you mind saying hello and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Rick. Hi, everybody. I guess probably a lot of people have stumbled across my website because they were Googling how to do something stupid with charts, and I'm kind of the expert on that kind of stuff. I didn't start out that way with computers or anything. As Rick said, I was in college for quite a long time, but I ended up getting I ended up finally with a doctorate in metallurgy of all things, and I worked for a good number of years as a research scientist and, doing some production engineering and so forth. And, along the ways, you pick up a few tricks. You need to do some number crunching, and the only tool that most companies seem to give their people is Excel. And so, we got kind of good at that. And I was telling the guys before that, even before Excel, when we were doing charting, I was doing some nice charts for my thesis. And back in the day, most of the graphics were done by hand. You either did them yourself or you brought them down to the art department and they would do it. But we had just gotten ourselves this. It was a cutting edge HP desktop computer, and it was, I mean, if you looked at it now, you would kind of laugh, but at the time it was pretty fancy. And we hooked it up to an HP pen plotter, and the way those things worked is you basically had to tell it, okay, move the pen over to there, put the pen down, now move the pen over to there, and that's how you drew a line. And any line you wanted on your chart, you had to tell it to draw it. And so, you got good at writing yourself do loops, so you got the right number of tick marks and the right labels in the right place. And, and then I got I don't even remember what the program was. I started out on a Macintosh, believe it or not, and there was a graphics program there, and the thing actually drew all the lines for you. It was kind of amazing. But in the back of my mind, I never forgot that there's ways of getting all these lines where you want them. And so when I started working with Excel, oh gee, I wanna put a target line there, and that's just a horizontal line. And of course, you can use the drawing toolbar and draw a line, and as soon as your data changes, everything moves except the line. And people were like, well, how do I automate it? And you probably get somebody there answering a forum post somewhere saying, oh yeah, what you got to do is write this VBA thing that calculates everything and it moves the line. And the thing is, if you put a feature in the chart and actually plot a line, it's just going to go wherever the axes tell it to go, and you don't have to do all this extra stuff. But anyway, it's and so I said I started out as an engineer, and after about 15 years of that, like most good engineers, I got a pink slip one day, and I'd been doing some Excel work, a lot of Excel work for myself. In the Maslow's hierarchy of programming, down at the very bottom is programs you write for yourself, and they do a very limited amount of stuff. They have limited features, and if something doesn't work, you just go in there under the hood and tweak it and make it work. And then a little higher in the hierarchy is when you start like sharing the program with someone in the next cubicle. So it still doesn't need a lot of fancy features, because it's doing something useful if the guy asks you to borrow your workbook. But it's got to be a little more robust, because he sure isn't going to be able to go in there and figure out what went wrong. So and as you move up the hierarchy, you get better at making the program a little safer for other people to use. Then there's your colleague. He works in another division in your company, and so you email him something, and when you're finally starting to program for clients, it really gets complicated. You think you do some dumb things with computers, but and I'm not saying clients are dumb; they hire you, right? But
Right. Right.
well, I don't know. Maybe that's dumb too. But it gets more and more difficult to make something work at an acceptable level of reliability. I mean, if it's a guy down the hall, he knows he can just come down and bang on your door and you'll fix it. But I have to say my last engineering job was not a very fun experience. I moved to a new company and we were in manufacturing, and it's tough to be in manufacturing because everything is bottom line, and you're just you lose track of what you're doing just to get things out the door. And I mean, shipping is good, but it takes a big mental toll, and I hated it, and people were yelling all the time. And I used to go on the forums all the time and answer questions, and this is back, oh God, a long time ago. And people used to say, "Oh, do you do programming? I want to hire you to do program." And I'd say, "No, I got a day job, man. This is just something I do for fun." And one day I changed my answer to yes, and I told the guy, "Yeah, I'll do some run charts for you. Yeah, it'll cost you $50." And so I think by the time I got paid, it was probably about $1.50 an hour I got, because all the stuff that I didn't have to do for myself, right? He's like, "Well, I clicked the button and this error came up," and well, he hadn't selected the whole data range, and of course, I could tell him to select it, but if it's 200 rows, he doesn't want to select that whole thing. So you have to start thinking, okay, if the active cell is in a data range, let's pick the whole current region it's in. And you look back and it's like, duh, but these things are a revelation at first. And so I started doing this, and it was like nights and weekends, probably like 10 hours a week while I still had my day job. And that was actually a good way to get started, because I could make mistakes, and it's not like the production line would fail and so forth. It was just okay, it meant I had to stay up late another night to get it done. And I was lucky. I was thinking, geez, I really was tired of this engineering stuff, and the economy was bad, and layoffs everywhere. We were in the aerospace industry too, which is particularly prone to cyclical business conditions.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, geez, I kind of like this Excel programming stuff. I wish I could do that, but you're not going to quit a job if you're getting benefits and stuff. They really got you by the short and curlies, and so.
Good way of putting it.
But when they made the decision for me, it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll switch and start getting the benefits from my wife's job. And I had like 3 clients at the time, and a couple of them were able to ramp up the hours they were paying me, and it didn't take too long to turn that into a successful business.
Right.
And of course, I talked about the Maslow pyramid or hierarchy of programming, and when you're programming for a client, you're up near the top. But I along the way, I built a bunch of little tools, waterfall charts. They're great little tools. Everybody wants to do them, and they're a pain in the butt to do because, each one takes 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, now it goes from positive to negative, and the bar doesn't go across the line, and it means you have to write a few more formulas, and you have a few more series in the chart, but it's hard to figure that out at first.
Right.
But so I figured it out for a client, and I made some embellishments for another client, and put it all together and put it on my website, and started selling it. I figured, well, this will supplement the contract programming stuff that I did, and as it happens, the contract programming is supplementing the software sales. But see, now you're at the very apex of the hierarchy of programming. So that's got to be bulletproof, because whoever's using it, they don't know diddly about programming Excel. They don't know about, you're lucky they know the on switch. And so you have to make it so it's easy to install. And that's an issue with Excel plugins, because they don't install the way a Windows program does. So every IT department that touches it does it wrong the first time. So you're always thinking about, how can I make it easier for the poor user? And also, if it's easier for him, it means it's easier for you, because then they're not calling you every 5 minutes, oh, it won't install, or I don't see the menu anymore. And so, it has to be really bulletproof. And, the first few times that I had a new release of software, and this is like 6 years ago, there'd be a couple of weeks where I'd be busy backpedaling because I forgot something, or something didn't work, or the data that I assumed would be perfect, well, somebody's got their own idea of what reasonable data is, and like, wow, I didn't even think of that. And so, and it's a learning experience, and you got to be agile, and you got to be able to fix something.
Well, and also I think there's not taking it personally. Try doing the best you can to explain to people that this is, this is not like making a toothpick and then it's done. Things are always changing. There's so many moving parts.
It's a living organism.
Yeah.
It keeps going, and sometimes you have to perform surgery on it, and
yes.
Sometimes it needs training so it knows what to do, and sometimes you need to amputate stuff. And you have to forget how important a certain thing was for you to put in there. If nobody's using it, or it's not working right, you got to do something with it. And I can describe a case in point. We had a little chuckle over this, but it was my question is, what's the stupidest thing you ever did in Excel? And I don't know what the stupidest thing I ever did was, but a couple of weeks ago, I was making some modifications to my program, and again, this was in response to customers that said, well, it's a pain in the neck arranging the data so your program can use it. So I figured out a way of making it more flexible, accepting, various layouts of data. And, here I am, I'm proud. I was working with arrays, and I had it working just great. And, of course, I used very simplistic data in my testing, and I kind of did some of the algorithms late at night and said, okay, that's good enough. It looks like it works. And I shipped it, and that was 2 weeks ago. And last night I was actually doing an example for a customer. Says, well, can I plot this kind of data with it? And it's like, sure you can. So I put the data in it, crash. Oh, what's going on? And so finally I realized that it was only half baked, and it was only halfway implemented. And so I was up until the wee hours last night, got up early today, and I was working most of the day on it. And the program itself works, and I still need to do a little work on the interface. The interface is very important too, because somebody who you don't have the ability to sit and hold their hand has to be able to figure out how to use your program.
Yeah.
And because nobody reads the documentation, and besides, it's too hard to write documentation anyway.
Right. So that gets really complicated because because they want it to work, but then we realize as programmers and developers that it doesn't always work the first time, the second time, or even the fifth time. And it's a constant massaging of something, and then the road testing. Or the road testing that you said to do a month ago that nobody ever did, and so now they're road testing it, and
you're testing on the production release of your software, and that's a little bit shaky. And the only thing you can do about that is when you get an email or you get a phone call, you respond as soon as you can.
Yeah.
And you say, man, I never saw that before, but show me how you did it. show me what happened. And they'll say, oh, it's error 1004. Well, anybody done any programming in VBA, you know that 80% of the errors are 1004. So
Right.
what's the error message? I don't know, something like it can't do that object. And so what I found is these online conference tools are very good for debugging stuff. Partly they're good because you get to see what they're doing, and you can even go in there and unlock it on their machine and fiddle around and test what's going on. But also the important thing, and I never realized this, you're an engineer, you're just working your cubicle and minding your own business. If the customer sees that there's a real person working on this, answering the phone and willing to help, and Oz, you were saying you didn't realize I was such a small company. It's just me here, so I answer the phone, and people are impressed. Wow, you answered your own phone. You're going to work on my problem, and I think in some cases that has helped sell more because they figure, oh, this is a guy that it wasn't perfect, but he tried his best to fix it, and he answered right away and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I get that from some clients, and a chef that paid me $500 for something she could have gotten for $40. She couldn't get the $40 thing to work, but for her $500 we got her something custom, and when something was wrong, she's got me on the phone at 9 o'clock at night.
That's right. And it's your business, and I have fewer hours on the weekend, but I still I check the email, make sure there's no problems going on, make sure the website didn't crash overnight, things like that.
So why? Oh yeah.
So, what's kind of preventing me from releasing my own add-in, I've had a few ideas, I don't know that they're as good as yours, is that I'm kind of concerned from a testing standpoint. So can you take us through what you do in terms of testing before you even release something? I mean, is it more than just having a friend try to break it?
Well, can I make? So I want to ask one more question about the freelancing, and then we get more into technical. So I'm just going to ask about before. So why didn't you say, I'm going to go get a better day job? Why fool around with this freelancing stuff?
Well, because at the time I was laid off, it was at the very bottom of the economy. It was it was getting worse and worse. 2002 was bad. 2003 was bad. We were getting to the point where they were laying off engineers every week, and I had within the last couple of years, I had relocated my family to take this job. I didn't want to relocate again. I did not want to uproot my family again, and there were like no jobs, and in this area there were no equivalent jobs even that weren't hiring, and so I just didn't want to go through that ringer again.
Wow. Okay.
And I had been thinking of freelancing, and I had been doing a few hours a week anyway, so had a little discussion with my wife. It's like, well, this might work, let's try it. And she was patient, and actually she didn't have to be too patient. And
wow.
And I won't say that I was great at it at first. I still don't think I'm great at it. Any programmer that thinks their code doesn't suck is probably not a very good programmer, Yeah, it just and actually I've learned that it really suits my personality. I was not a good corporate employee, I didn't, toe the line and, yes sir, no sir kind of stuff. I had a big mouth, and a lot of opinions, and I didn't like doing crap that I don't want to do. And, pretty much the boss I have now lets me get away with some of that stuff. And,
okay.
That sounds like you in the call center, Oz.
That's great.
Yeah. So you're talking my language, man.
Hey,
So Bearded Jordan have a question.
Yeah, he was asking about testing.
I gotta know.
Yes.
I gotta know what the secret is, if there is indeed a secret.
Well, if there's a secret, I don't know it. I mean, I beat on stuff I tested a fair amount. I try to think of the screwiest data I can put in, and it's only half as screwy as something that somebody next week is going to try. And earlier in the process, I had a handful of people that I would send some demo things to, and some other who I would consider our colleagues, other experts, other MVPs, other Excel people, and I would get some feedback from them, but you get a lot of good feedback from the users. And if it's not so totally crap that it doesn't work at all, they can see that, hey, this is something that's pretty good, and they'll give you suggestions. They'll say, gee, I wish I could enter data in rows instead of in columns. And anybody who works with databases a lot, it comes in columns, but sometimes your data comes a different way, or your boss wants it a different way, or and so you get a little flexible, or you give them an option. Buttons on a dialog box are cheap, by row, by column, and like I was saying before about the guy with 300 rows, you didn't want to select the whole thing. You try to make your code smart about selecting the data, so that to make it easier for the user. And of course, the user, there's always some user that has some edge case that nobody could predict.
Yeah.
But once you hear about it, suddenly you think of 6 or 8 other things. Either you could do that would enhance your program, or that you could do at least to make your program a little bit more stable, a little more reliable. And it's a learning experience. I learn something every day, mostly about stupid stuff I did before. And I look at my code and I say, God, when did I write this? And then I realize, oh, it was only 2 weeks ago. Geez, I haven't learned anything in the last 10 years.
This morning.
But yeah,
I wrote that this morning.
I don't even recognize it. But it works. It's not perfect. And I mean, I know there's a lot of little things, and they bug me. And it's usually, I have a big list, and I get to them like if I'm in a particular module that makes a particular kind of chart, and I was having some issue with it before, I'll work on those issues while I'm working on the new thing that I'm doing. And and sometimes it's little stuff like, gee, that border shouldn't be black. I'll make it kind of gray. Or it'd be nice if those labels were closer to the axis they're describing. But
all of that. And I tell you, man, that when it comes out, why is this so expensive? Well, sometimes the Excel or the math is easy, but getting an interface that makes sense and getting things to line up, and anticipating, if this chart gets cluttered, all of these labels are going to get on top of each other. I've got to deal with that.
Yep.
So the chart is working. So yeah, you got to be a graphic designer and all of that stuff.
You got to be. And you also, sometimes you have this issue, and it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't even know how I'm going to attack this. The thing I said about this one chart, making the data easier to more flexible in how to specify your data, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. And I think it was 2 years, and I didn't really do anything about it. And one day, it just kind of started to become clear to me that instead of trying to do what I've been doing, which is copy, arrange, and paste links so it links back, so if they change the data and stuff, I built myself a little module, and I'm kind of kicking myself because it would have saved me hours and hours over the last 5 years, but a little module that it goes through a range and just puts the address of that range into an array, and then you can take that array, you can transpose it if you need to or whatever, and you put that array into another worksheet somewhere, and it links back to the original place, and it's so much easier than the way I had been doing it. And in fact, once it's in an array, you can essentially, it's like doing your own pivot operations on this array, and once that came to me, it's like, first of all, I was kicking myself that it took 5 years to think of it, but it made a lot of stuff easy.
Yeah.
I'd like to jump in just for a second, if I could, because we're going to have to move to our next topic here pretty quick. But things I would like to show, John, is how your work has inspired me a little bit. And as anybody who's watched, oops, one moment. Anybody who has watched the show here recently, it knows that I've been talking about this dang conference that I've been speaking at, and I finally spoke at it last week. And I want to show you a slide or two from here. One moment, do a full screen here. I'll share my screen. Please let me know when you can see
Yep.
like a magic quadrant. See that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this is a slide from my presentation last week, and I was kind of go through here, but once I get to this slide every time, this is a magic quadrant. This is for a county that I did some work with, where the size of the bubble means the complexity of bringing them into a data warehouse, and there's the fire department, the accounting department, the human resources, treasury, etc. And you'll notice that each of these different quadrants are a different color. There's the ability to slide the bars. It's one of the things that John was talking about earlier. There's one thing to put a line here, but there's quite another thing to put a line that automatically can adjust based on you putting in different criteria. That's different. And so in this entire thing, whenever I go through this, and let me come back to me here for a moment. Come back. Okay. Hopefully you can see me now.
Yep.
Okay. And every time that I show something like this at a conference, and this is part of kind of creating I guess, an overall strategy, people are asking, where do you get this from? And every single conference, I have to go up to the whiteboard, and I write up on the whiteboard, peltiertech.com. This is an Excel charting guru, and this is because first off, I have to tell them, okay, so I'm not sending you to some website to where I'm trying to pimp out somebody's products. Go here and go to peltiertech.com, type in magic quadrant. You can learn how to do all this sort of stuff. And I just want to serve that up as just kind of an example of how something that's complex, that's actually kind of hard to do, it's kind of hard to figure out. Once you figure it out and I see how you did it on your website, then it makes sense. But getting to that point where it makes sense is, you have to be kind of a little bit of a devious mind to figure it all out. So mad props to you. Thank you for that.
Well, and I would like to add. So I'll have people who say, "How do I make this 3D chart in Excel?" And I'll say, "Don't do that." And then I'll point them to your website and show them, here's some alternatives. Or there's some other weird charts that, like ones where it sort of cuts off at the top axis to jump to another, or it cuts off at a top scale. All those kind of magazine-style charts, I'll say, you don't want to do that, and I'll show them, I'll send them your way and to your site so they can learn how to do these other types of charts that are much better, and actually not that hard to do if you have the instructions. So.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, John.